And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Atoll, and I'm joined again by Electrek Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
I'm good.
Awesome. So we've got a little bit of a lag. I'm about halfway around the world in Spain. Seth is holding down the fort in New York, and so bear with us if we have a little bit of lag here. But fortunately, to make up for it, we've got a lot of interesting stories this week. There are, as usual, several new electric bikes, some from Porsche. We are also looking at a new or new to the US e-bike reseller known as Upway, who has opened up operations here in the US. And Seth got a chance to visit them, so we'll get the lowdown on how their operation works, which is pretty neat. We've got new e-bikes being teased by a British company called WAU. There's an interesting update to an electric bike lawsuit between two companies. We're going to look at some braking issues between mechanical and hydraulic brakes and a review of bike, kind of a weird looking but pretty neat e-bike. And then we're going to move on to some other interesting stories, including a electric mini truck that is being built right in the U.S. and is headed for street legal homologation. And we're going to finish off with Luna's new Talaria XXX, a really interesting sort of lightweight electric motorbike, which again, Seth has the lowdown from some pretty cool sneak peek info. So where are we going to start with, Seth?
All right. Porsche releases two new electric bikes, and you better sit down for the price.
Yeah, so I won't bury the lead here too much. These two bikes are priced at between about 14 and a half to 15 and a half thousand dollars. That's pretty pricey. I will say these are pretty nice bikes. We're talking about carbon bikes, predictive electric shifting, the newest transmission, best brakes. I think these are the MT7Es from Agura, if I'm not mistaken. So, like the best that bicycle component companies have to offer right now. And of course, you're going to be paying a premium for the Porsche sticker on the side. Now, it's important to say that when it comes to Porsche bikes, these are not, white labeled, take them out of a catalog or partner with an e-bike company bikes. Porsche has done a really good job of actually developing their electric bikes. I think they started a few years ago with similar looking models, but they've kept expanding these models. They've worked with other e-bike companies to expand their offerings. They previously bought Grape, which was like Remax e-bike partner. And so, Porsche is not paying lip service here. Yes, these are incredibly expensive e-bikes, but the company is actually significantly invested in the developing sort of the leading edge of what automotive companies are doing in the two-wheeled e-bike space. I don't know if you could get me to pay $14,000 for one of these e-bikes, or I think the nicer version of the e-bike cross performance model that they're charging. I think it's 15 and a half thousand. It's really just a few different special edition colors that bump up that price. So you're talking about some serious upcharge here. But if someone, wants just really like the best of the best components and wants the bike to match the swooping lines of their Porsche Taycan, I guess, then this might be the bike for you. I don't know, Seth, could you see yourself on a $15,000 Porsche e-bike?
Yeah, I can see myself on it. I don't see myself shelling out the money for it though. Maybe we'll check one out at Eurobike or something like that. I do notice that they have the ABS front brake. I mean, it's basically everything top spec'd out, and then of course the Porsche logo on there. How much of this is coming from Grape or the other companies they bought? Uh, is it obvious that this is a Grape bike, or is it just like a Porsche bike with maybe some Grape knowledge?
Yeah, it's a little more of the latter here because this is really like another sort of addition of an existing line they've had with this cross performance. And so we're probably going to see some grape-like bikes in the future, but this is really more Porsche DNA.
Okay, and then of course this is a Euro bike, so you know to be legal on Euro roads and bike pass, it has to have a 250-watt motor. Is that what this thing has? I mean, I know Porsche often puts big motors into their system. So
Right. So I'm looking at the specs here, the P801, and so like a lot of these sort of European legal motors, it's going to say 250 watts on it. But like we often talk about, these motors are really over spec for that 250 watt. In this case, they're really looking at the torque number instead of the power number. And so I don't have the specs in front of me right now for the torque on this motor, but you better believe it's going to be one of the higher end models with the higher torque. And so 250 watts is really more of a 250 watt in name only situation here.
got it. And that makes sense, and that's kind of what we would expect from both Porsche and a bike that costs $15,000.
Yeah, fair
Uh,
enough.
so let's move on here. Upway. So Upway is a uh, French bike reseller, and they opened a U.S. shop. Actually, I think the grand opening was like March or April, but it was kind of a soft opening. And they brought out some press, although I didn't see anybody else there. They brought out some press to the shop or to the warehouse to have us look at their operations. And obviously, when you open up a kind of a reseller of uh, bikes, you kind of want to get the warehouse full, or get things going. So I can understand why they waited a couple months before having us out. But it's a really cool idea for a number of reasons. One, so the big idea is that they take bikes from bike stores that didn't sell for whatever reason. They're 100% e-bikes, so there's no acoustic bikes here. So any bikes that didn't sell for whatever reason at an e-bike shop, they can they buy them at a discount. They take a look at them, make sure everything's running well. If repair anything that might be weird. Um, and then they also take bikes from like the big companies like Cannondale and Reese and Mueller. They take last year's models that are sitting in warehouses that didn't sell, and the new ones are coming out. And then they also for bikes that are in high demand, and they said mountain bikes in the U.S. were in high demand, as well as the kind of bucket bikes you can see here on the uh, the picture if you're watching us. Um, those are in super high demand, although those cost a little bit more to ship in and out. So they take these bikes, they go through this inspection process, and this is kind of their little their processing center here. And if it's a used bike, then they repair anything that's wrong, and they try to fix up scuffs, and they try to make it look and feel as new as possible. But for most of the bikes they process through here, they are new bikes. Like some even come in the boxes unopened. So they take them out. They put a kind of bike shop level of um, you know we've talked about in the past where the brakes aren't tight, or there's a bolt loose. So they go over everything and make sure the bike is ready, like a bike shop would. And then they take pictures of it. And in the picture, you can see on the left side, the Upway logo. There's like a photography thing where a camera goes around in 360. And it only takes like a minute for them. So they push the bike in there, they push a button, 20 shots get taken of the bike, and it's ready for upload to the internet on their site. And then, they can get a bike in the morning, have it processed and on the website, and even sold in the same day, which is kind of impressive. So they don't want to sit on a lot of inventory. They want to kind of move the stuff through, and they anticipate they can move thousands of bikes a day once their name gets out there. Once they got they
Wow.
have the incoming bikes as well. And they've said they not only get bikes from the shops and the manufacturers, but they also, for the high demand bikes, they go around on like Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and all the places, and they say, hey, this is a bike, we can fix it up, or it's in really good condition, and we can sell it for a profit. So let's buy the bike. And then bike shops, if somebody's trading in a bike or whatever, can also go to them. And that's kind of an interesting piece of this story is I actually saw my friend's Mad Mod, Saunders Mad Mod. I think he said it was too heavy for him or something. And I was like, wow, that's a Mad Mod. It looks just like my buddies. And they were like, do you live in Croton on Hudson? I was like, yep, I know, I know who's Mad Mod that is. So I didn't even know he was selling it. But he went through the process pretty quick. It's like 3 steps on the website, and you can just uh, pitch your bike to them. They'll look at it if they like it and the price. They'll have it sent to them and give you the cash. So it's a great operation. It's working in Berlin and Paris right now, and they ship to 4 countries in Europe. And I think it'll be popular in the U.S. They're actually already looking for a West Coast distribution point because I think there's a lot of people in California and the West Coast that are buying from Brooklyn, and they're selling these things, or they're shipping these things cross country, which isn't uh, terribly efficient.
Yeah, and I
So
think you mentioned in the post too that there's even a warranty that you get when you buy a used bike. A warranty, is that through Upway? Or-
yeah, that's so Upway will, after inspecting the bike and making sure they can kind of stand behind it, they'll give you a 1 year warranty, and actually even a 14-day just no questions asked return policy. So if you don't like the bike for whatever reason, when you get it, you ship it back, and you're even. But if something happens, like tire gets loose or whatever, 6 months down the road, they will either ship you a repaired piece, or they will have it fixed for you. So it's kind of like buying a new bike. If you bought a truck bike from a truck shop, you would get a 1 year you know warranty on it. So this is kind of putting warranties on older bikes. Now a lot of the bikes they sell are new from the shop, but the companies that are selling the last year's bikes to them, they don't want to have to warranty something, so they can sell it to them at a lower price, and then Upway kind of takes that responsibility, but they also charge a little bit more. So the prices, like we're obviously always looking at you know uh, prices of e-bikes. It's obviously one of the biggest components of the whole situation. They're not amazing. You're not going to find like um, you know 80% off bikes here. But there are some that are half off of list, and of course they're last year. So you might, on a bike shop website, you might get a 10-20% discount. But here you're getting 50 to 60% off. So there's definitely deals to be had. There's definitely like you're gonna there's definitely something for everyone as well. And one thing I really liked is they have this configurator tool, or this finder tool, where you say, hey, I'm this tall, I want a bike for off-roading, or what you want the bike for, and all your kind of specs, and it spits out like a number of bikes that might be good for you. Well, if you're shopping for a new bike and you want to know, hey, like what other bikes are out there in my kind of configuration, you can kind of use this finder tool for that. And I've actually sent some people over there who've kind of been looking for new e-bikes. So all around pretty sweet. The flip side is that you know like I was at a Trek event later that same day, and I was talking to him like, hey, I was just at Upway, this is pretty cool, I saw a couple of your bikes there. And they're like, well, we're gonna start buying our own e-bikes back and selling them on our own site. I was like, oh, do they, like, I hope other people don't do that. And it just so happens that the Saunders bike that we saw there, Saunders has, kind of an open box. Here, let me see if I can bring it up on the website here. Saunders has like an open box website, um, and it turns out that they're selling, you know, uh, Saunders only offers a 90-day warranty versus Upway's 1 year warranty. And who knows how long it'll take Saunders. It could be a year before your bike shows up. So they show the bikes in 2 to 5 days, from purchase to delivery. So it's better in a lot of ways, but there's not you're not going to find like the crazy discounts like what we just saw there. But I think they're going to do okay. It's just I wonder how much the other bike companies are going to say, hey, this is a great model. We should do this to our own bikes.
Yeah, and I can already tell I'm going to be wasting a lot of time on their site looking at different bike deals.
Yep. Yeah, that's what happened to me. I'm already a like a daily user. All right, let's move on. Pronounced WOW Project Cyber teased as a revolutionary high performance electric bike.
So WOW is a British e-bike company. They're well known for their style of bike that looks a little bit like the original Saunders bike with a filled-in triangle, but has these really cool long taillights that run down the back of the bike along the seat stays. And so now they're teasing this new, what appears to be a much higher performance e-bike that has the name Cyber, and it looks more like an enduro, almost like a kind of a small Suron or Talaria type bike, but it's got those same long taillights, it looks like, running down the seat stays in the back of the bike. It also has what looks like sort of complementary headlights running down the front of the fork. So we don't know too much about it yet, but it seems like it's going to have something that's sort of in that blurry gray area between motorcycles and sort of heavy electric bicycles. I don't think it's going to rival something like a metacycle because it doesn't look like it's meant for that. It obviously has pedals in the teaser image, but we're certainly looking at something that looks a lot more high performance than the commuter electric bikes that WOW is known for. And I know the company is going to be at Micromobility Europe in a week or so, a big e-bike and e-scooter and other personal electric vehicle show in Europe, and we're going
Who
to be
else?
there as well.
I was gonna say, who else is gonna be there? You are.
So, yeah, exactly. So we're expecting to hopefully see this there. There's no confirmation or anything, but it's a pretty neat looking model, and it's right in their backyard, the Amsterdam show. So it's not too far of a jump from the UK. So we're hoping to see this and learn a lot more details about this bike. Their design drawings, I don't know, like a pretty aggressive bike to me.
Oop, I think I might have lost you there.
To, oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm here. So yeah, I was just saying that based on the drawings there, where they released a number of sort of early design sketches, it looks like this design is going to be pretty aggressive, in my opinion.
Yeah, it looks really nice. Although, like, is that headlight actually functional? I mean, it looks cool, but it looks like also there's a headlight in the front as well.
Yeah, well, a lot of these sort of concept art images, the lights are one of the first things to get modified before they actually hit the production line.
And from this teaser, it almost looks like there's a pedal there. Is there going to be a pedal on this bike?
Yeah, it definitely looks like a pedal to me. So I think they're going to try to slip this into like this. It'll be interesting, that's for sure.
All right, uh, let's move on. That looks like an interesting bike. E-bike company apologizes, recalls electric bike model after lawsuit. And we should probably point out that this is not the electric bike company. It's another generic e-bike company.
Yes, absolutely. Not to be confused with the electric bike company known as Electric Bike Company. This is an e-bike company called Himaway, which you're probably familiar with Himaway if you've seen a number of e-bikes, especially lower cost direct-to-consumer bikes. So they more or less ripped off the Jackrabbit micro bike, which you can see on the left there in yellow, when they released the Himaway Pony. There are some subtle differences that this looks like a straight up Jackrabbit ripoff. So after they launched it, Jackrabbit sued Himaway, and they basically said this is like clear design infringement. And it took about a month or so, but we just got response from Himaway, who says that first of all, they acknowledge that it's infringement. They say they did not intend to, that they used sort of second party suppliers for several key parts. And so that's sort of where they say that the similarity came from. I don't know how much, you want to take stock in that. But at least they do own up to it and say, yes, this is infringement. We apologize. We're stopping production. We're recalling the bikes. I'm not sure any actually made it to customers, but they said they're recalling them. And they said that it's a sort of growing experience for them, and they're going to be a lot more careful in future launches. And they say that they're going to sort of slow down, they'll make sure that they're not designs. So it's an interesting case where a company actually owned up to a pretty obvious case of copying another bike. We've seen what look like nearly photocopied e-bikes before, but rarely do we see a company sort of accept that they've made a mistake and respond to it so quickly. So it's pretty. I'd say I'm pretty impressed with their response here, though it's unfortunate that this lawsuit even had to happen in the first place.
Yeah, I wonder if their lawyers were like, "Hey, not a good idea uh, to take this. This, it's not an easy case to win." Or if they were just like, "You know what, this is bad press. We're not gonna go down this road."
Yeah, I don't think any lawyer is going to want to take on this case when it's that obviously a copy.
Yeah. Oh well. All right. Moving on. Mechanical versus hydraulic disc brakes on electric bikes. The pros and cons of each.
Yeah, so sometimes we like to dive into sort of the more technical aspects of bikes, and this was a fun chance to do sort of a deep dive on brakes because we're starting to see many more e-bikes, especially in the low-cost territory, coming out with hydraulic brakes. And at the same time, I often see misinformed commenters in comment section, either saying that mechanical brakes are like just basically garbage and you should never ride a bike with them, or on the other hand saying hydraulic brakes are not worth it and there's no point in upgrading. So this was a good chance to sort of lay out the pros and cons of each. And to sort of summarize here, mechanical disc brakes, which have a mechanical cable that runs from the brake lever down to the brake pads, the advantage is there that they're lower cost and they're a simpler system. But the disadvantage is that they don't provide as much braking force for the same finger pull, meaning you got to pull harder with your fingers to get the same stopping power. And they require more maintenance, or at least more regular maintenance. As that cable stretches, it's really important that you take up slack either by moving those barrel adjusters or by actually pulling more cable through. It's a very simple form of maintenance. You can do it with a single tool, but I commonly see people who don't understand bicycle maintenance and they come to me with their bike and they're like, "Hey, why is this not braking?" And I pull the levers and the levers touch the handlebars. And I have to explain to them, well, your cables are all stretched out. You need to really, adjust these. And so that's a big advantage of hydraulic brakes is that if you're someone who doesn't really know a lot about making adjustments on your bike, you just know that you like an e-bike and you want to get one, then hydraulic brakes are kind of set it and forget it. When you get the bike, they're basically going to stay tuned as long as you have pads maintenance. Is when you wear all the way through your pads. Now, if you're a heavy duty rider that you go every day and you're riding 20 miles a day, you might go through pads in 2 or 3 months. If you're a weekend warrior, you might change pads once a year. So a lot less maintenance on hydraulic brakes, and they're more powerful. So with one finger you can get good stopping power, but they're more expensive. So uh, I hate when I see people sort of like denigrate mechanical brakes and say that they're not worth it. But at the same time, it's a shame to see people say that like hydraulic brakes aren't worth the upgrade. So I think that in this case, when you look at the pros and cons, you can really make the decision whether saving money is worth it to you or whether you want to have a easier to use, lower maintenance solution like hydraulic brakes. Do you have a favorite between the two, Seth?
I'm a hydraulic guy, and I think the prices are coming down on hydraulic brakes to the point where it's almost not worth even even on the low cost bikes, you're not saving that much money, and the electric one is a good example of that. Like, what is the price difference these days?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, for electric, it's always hard for me to judge because they're like several $100s under the industry average. So I don't know what like voodoo they're doing, but definitely across the board, we're seeing prices come down on bikes with hydraulic disc brakes. So I have to imagine that with more options, perhaps more supply in the market, this just isn't costing e-bike companies what it was a few years ago. And that really translates into more strong, low maintenance braking solutions for consumers without having to spend thousands of dollars to get there.
Now, are there any advantages to mechanical brakes? Like, is there something, besides cost? Is there applications where they work better than hydraulic brakes?
So I would say that the biggest advantage besides cost is that if you do have to do maintenance, if, for example, you get in a wreck or something and you loosen up a nut on your brakes or you somehow get a hydraulic leak, that's a much more complicated process to rebleed brake lines. Most people are not going to be able to do that themselves and they'll have to take it to a bike shop. Whereas with mechanical brakes, you could spend 5 minutes watching a YouTube video and be pretty good at adjusting your own brakes.
Yeah, that's true. But as you said, you're going to be doing that regardless because just, if you get a new bike, those cables are going to stretch a little bit. And then all of a sudden, you're going to be all the way at the bar, squeezing as tight as you can and not getting the braking you need. I've been there. I've had that's happened to me. And, as a I'm not a bike mechanic, but like, when I first got into bikes, I was like, "Well, why do I have to do that?" And then, of course, the bike guy's like, "All this happens to every single mechanical disc or mechanical brake bike. The cables are just the metal just stretches. That's just normal." So,
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people who get into e-bikes are new to bikes, totally because they're coming from a car or they're coming from, taking the bus. And so it's important to learn those things if you're going to have mechanical brakes and know how to adjust them.
yep. All right, moving on. NIU's BQi-C3 Pro review, a funny shaped yet awesome electric bike.
So this one, I actually really like the design here. It's like a giant V. It's a really low step, but the cool thing is that both the seat tube and the down tube have a battery built into them. Now it's removable, so it's not like a hidden battery, but it's integrated into the tubes. So there's about a 500 watt hour battery in both of them, which means you get a kilowatt hour of capacity in what doesn't look like an overladen bike because you either have a hidden battery and the other battery is bolted on, or a lot of dual battery bikes just have two like big black bulky looking batteries. And so for a dual battery bike, I just really like the clean, nice look of this one. And to me, the red on white just looks really good too. They have a red on black version, but it doesn't pop as much. So I like the colorway here. But moving past the dual battery setup for a second, which is still sort of my favorite part here, there are definitely some other nice parts. There's a built-in rack. There's a Gates carbon belt drive. We've got those hydraulic disc brakes. We're just talking about hydros. It's also got a very nice screen that has a readout for both of the batteries. So you can see that like one of my batteries is at 35% and the other's at 55%. So you're not guessing like, two battery bikes often have a single battery display that averages them or it only tells you the highest one. Into this bike that to me I think really make it a nice upgrade over a lot of other dual battery bikes. But at the same time, there are some downsides here. For one, with that Gates carbon belt drive and a hub motor in the back, you only have one gear ratio. And so single speed bikes that are class 3 e-bikes like this one that go 28 miles per hour, a single speed doesn't work very well at the high end. Your feet are spinning like an egg beater. And when I ride this and I'm, up at 28, I literally almost can't pedal fast enough to catch up to the point where it would actually give me, help and propulsion. I'm basically what we often call like ghost pedaling or mime pedaling, where you just spin the pedals to engage the sensor and you're not really, adding anything yourself. So while I love Gates carbon drives and I will always, love when I can get a bike with that carbon, but this would say that we could include a internally geared hub. Maybe that would mean having to do a front hub motor, and then in the rear having an internally geared hub, we couldn't do it this way because they give us that 750-watt rear hub motor, and there's just nowhere to put any gears with a belt drive when you don't have a hub in the rear. So that I think is the biggest disadvantage. I mean, you can even see in some of these like how fast I'm having to pedal to hit 28 miles an hour. It's almost comical. So while I love my belt drive, I don't know about the gear ratio on this bike. That's probably the biggest downside. But most everything else here, I think, is pretty awesome. And you got to remember, this is also coming from a company that is known for building high quality electric motorbikes. We're talking like mopeds, scooters, and millions, right? This is a Chinese company that for the Chinese market has built literally millions of electric mopeds. So, good quality company. They're nice, speed, reliable product. I just would have loved to have seen some better gears and some better gear ratio. But all in all, I think, a nice set of parts. I don't think I mentioned the price here. So just to finish off this verbal review, I think it's priced at $1,999 right now, marked down from $2,199, which I think is the MSRP. So, $2,000 for a dual battery Gates carbon belt drive. I think that's pretty fair. If they knock this down a little more during the holidays, I'd call it like a steal. But for a very nicely made e-bike from a company that's known for quality, this is pretty fair in my opinion. Any thoughts on the bike, Seth?
Does it have a throttle?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So forgot to mention that the throttle only works up to 20.
Mm.
Regulations that keep it technically a class 2 e-bike, though there's the argument about whether even having a throttle means that it can't be a class 3 e-bike, even if the oh, and the other thing is I think that it's available without a throttle in Europe. So, for countries that they aren't allowed, I think they have a European version.
So that's interesting to me because I can't imagine being able to pedal beyond 20 miles per hour to get that up to 28 miles per hour. And if the throttle doesn't work beyond 20 miles per hour, I don't imagine that this bike is going too far beyond 20 miles per hour unless you have 180 cadence legs or something.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got it to 28, but it's not the kind of thing that I would want to do for 10 miles straight just because you're
Right.
pedaling so dang fast.
And you can't gear this thing differently, right? It's a belt drive, so you're pretty much you get what you get.
Like pulling on the front. Yeah, that would be some serious work to change the gear ratio yourself.
Yeah. All right. Well, that certainly seems cool, and we know NIU's been around for a while. By the way, their stock had a little bit of a hit lately. Do we know anything about that?
Yeah, I don't know anything. It was like the day after my review came out, but I don't think that's
Hmm.
connected.
Interesting. What are the chances? All right. Did a little editing on that one.
Yeah, it's weird the video didn't embed there. Thanks for working on that.
Yes. All right, let's move on. America's first US built electric mini truck begins street legal homologation.
So, yeah, this is mostly an e-bike and light EV podcast, but we really love mini cars because they play nicer with sharing the road. And this is a mini truck. Like if you see the two people in there, if you're watching the feed with us, it looks pretty tiny, but it's got a pretty large flatbed back there that has fold up side panels and a tailgate to make it a little pickup truck. Or they make a whole box in the back so you can have like a box truck that is still quite small and lightweight. It's called the Aero Vanish, and they're building these in Texas. They're undergoing homologation right now, so they're going through all those tests for low-speed vehicles that ensure that it meets all the requirements. It only goes 25 miles an hour. It has all of the right DOT-approved components. It's produced in the right type of factory. They've registered everything, etc. So we're expecting these to start production of the first 50 units later this summer, and then after the summer, they're expected to scale up production. Right now, though, they're still in that homologation testing, which it's a little don't have as extensive a list of regulations the way a normal car or truck does. So the homologation should go much quicker than for a conventional vehicle. But we're still waiting to see when these things are actually going to be available. They are a little bit pricey. I believe they start at about $33,000. So you're probably looking mostly at commercial customers that have a need for a low speed vehicle and don't mind it being smaller. Maybe for them it's a plus, using around campuses, grounds crews, airports, that kind of thing, where they would need like a small nimble little electric vehicle, or even indoor use. A lot of these are narrow enough to fit through double doors, so in warehouses and that sort of thing, where an electric vehicle would be an advantage, so you don't have emissions. But at $33,000, I worry that it's going to have a little bit of trouble, getting rolling. So cheaper uh, internal combustion engine powered vehicles. Though hopefully the kind of people who are looking for something like this already say, we don't want an ICE drivetrain, we want an electric vehicle.
Yeah, and that was kind of what stuck out to me, and one of the commenters as well, the top commenter, is like, you've showed us all these trucks from China that cost, less than like some are even down at $5,000, even shipped under 10,000, and this is three times that. So it's a little bit of a hard sell for general usage, but as you said, I could imagine this being used inside at like a CES event or in a warehouse where you can't, do internal combustion type things. Um, and obviously these are just starting off the ground. You can't automatically get to scale, so maybe the more expensive initial ones kind of pay for the R&D and the homologation and all the other stuff, and then as they scale up, they can drop the price down to 20,000 and even less. But as of now, 33,000. As I always say, like, why not just buy a Chevy Bolt? Uh,
Yeah.
they're cheaper, and you can go more places, and they're already homologated. So I like the idea. I like where this is all going, but in the same way that Gem is kind of stuck in its low volume, high cost market, I fear that this is also going to be a problem here as well. All right, moving on. So, do we want to do the HeyBike Tyson?
Yeah, we could do it now, or we could save it for next week.
Let's do it.
Whatever you want to do here.
It's too late now. We're doing it. All right, the HeyBike Tyson review. This full suspension folding electric bike actually surprised us, and it did.
Yeah, so the HeyBike Tyson, it's nice to see, first of all, a novel frame design. There's so many 20-inch folding fat tire e-bikes out there that they kind of start to look alike after a while. And in this case, we've got this cool new hydroformed frame here. So it's a little more sweeping, it's a little more bulbous in a way. But I really like it because I like seeing new approaches to a style of e-bike that we see a lot. But moving past the design here, it's important to note that this is actually a full suspension e-bike. So generally, when you see the word full suspension, you got to add like several $100s to the price of an e-bike. But this one comes in at, I believe, 1,699 if I'm not mistaken. So for a full suspension fat tire e-bike, that's a, but they're known as being a decent direct to consumer e-bike company. And so 1699 is a really fair price. And I know Seth and I both tested this bike out. I'll tell you my impressions first, and then you can hear his. For me, I found it to be quite comfortable. In addition to the full suspension, you've got those fat tires, which have those really nice brown sidewalls. And to me, this was just a really nice, comfy bike for riding around upright. Easy to ride, doesn't hurt your back from leaning forward, that sort of thing. Pretty heavy, I think 77 pounds, if I'm not mistaken. So even folded up, it's kind of a hassle to lug around. But it's got some cool features to it. It's got turn signals, which HeyBike has started including on pretty much all of their bikes, I believe. Though the one downside here, and I always say this about turn signals that are too close together on bikes, is that to me it's hard to tell, that it's actually a turn signal when the left and right a blinking light in the center line of the bike. So I hate to like ding them on details like that, but if you're going to put turn signals, I like the way Aventon does it, where they're spread out really far, so it makes it more obvious. But that and maybe like kind of a jumpy cadence sensor. Otherwise, a comfortable, pretty decent e-bike as far as low cost full suspension bikes go. Now the suspension is not high end, so don't think that I'm telling you this is a great electric mountain bike. This is kind of cheap suspension, but for just casual recreational riders, which are the kind of people who would buy a HeyBike, it works. It's comfortable and easy to ride. What did you think about it, Seth?
I thought it was great. I agree with you on just about everything there. But I would point out that, I was riding this around on flat areas and I was getting up to like 25 miles per hour, which for a 750-watt bike, that's pretty good. Like that's kind of like the high end of what we would expect. I didn't get there fast, but it was pretty quick. But then I hit some hills, and I found that the hills were a little bit more challenging for this bike than a typical 750-watt bike would be. So, I wonder if the gearing on the hub motor is a little bit more set for flat land rather than steep hills.
Yeah, I
Um,
could definitely see that.
so, if you're a flatlander, then you're gonna have a great time with this. If you're on hills, maybe, uh, and I'm not talking like just regular hills. I'm talking about really steep hills. If you've got some really steep hills, maybe you pick up a little bit more powerful bike or one that's geared toward more torque and less speed. I agree with you on the lighting and the turn signals. It's funny, like I think one of my friends pointed out that like from any like standpoint of the bike, you can see at least two or three hay bikes. Either the lights or the side of the bike or the cable that comes down. They've got this thing like branded out like fully. But that said, I really like the look of the bike, the green color. It's a shame we both got the same color. Would have been cool, but whatever. The green color is super cool. I like the brown sidewalls. I think that's a good look. And it's got reflectors, and we talked about the lights and the turn signal, and it's even got a horn, which is not a huge deal, but it adds to the safety factor of the bike. Um, I put you can see in the post, I put a little milk carton on the back of mine, so uh,
Love it.
yeah, can add a little bit of storage there. It was pretty helpful. Um, what else? Brakes were great. I don't know how did you feel about the brakes?
Yeah, I mean they're not fancy, but hydraulic disc brakes. I think those are 160s if I'm not mistaken, or were they 180s? No, I can't remember. They all run together.
I felt like they were 180s, but I also don't know for sure.
Yeah, also the small wheels of the fat tires plays tricks on me like for proportions, so it's harder to tell on those small diameter fat tires. But yeah, I mean it to me it felt like on flatland it had plenty of go and plenty of stop, which some e-bikes only have one or the other. So it's good to have both.
Yeah, and the folding mechanism was great. I obviously put a milk carton on the back of mine, so it became a little bit bulkier, but it was fine. I did have so overall great bike. My problem. I know you had a loose bolt on yours, but mine the front wheel wasn't seated correctly. So I had to let out all the air and kind of reseat the front tire. It was like kind of wobbly at the beginning. I was like, "Oh my god, what happened?" And I looked at the actual the wheel itself, and I was like, "That seems fine. Why is it? Why are we bumping here?" And it turns out that the tire wasn't seated properly. So that was a quick and easy fix, but kind of goes to your point of like, uh, no matter how good the bike company is, check all the pieces to make sure everything's tight and working well.
Yeah, and that also sort of speaks to the difference between like a, $2,500 or $3,000 bike and a $1,500 bike. That those nicer companies, they take the extra time, or they force their employees to take the extra time to check everything, two or three times.
Yeah, definitely an extra level of quality control sometimes. Everything else was great. I found the seat very comfortable. The riding, you're riding upright. which is fine. The suspension, as you said, was nothing amazing, but it softened up the road a little bit. So yeah, I think overall it's a great bike.
See, and I think is Talaria our last thing here? I'm excited to hear about this one.
All right, so we can't say everything that we know about this one, unfortunately. But if you guys are interested in this bike, and it's kind of like a electric motocross bike in the Suron vein. Um, Luna is going to announce tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time, so 11 Eastern, and I don't know whatever Europe. It's actually there's a different distributor in Europe, so um, which we'll talk about here in a second. So this is a really exciting bike. I've actually ridden on a prototype of it. It's kind of going to be a big deal, I think, because it's low cost, and we can't say how low, but it's going to be crazy low cost. It's gonna go fast. Like I don't know where you're gonna typically ride this thing because you can see that it's got street tires on it, or at least gravel tires. I mean, these are not like off-road tires. So the legality of this thing is going to be a big fat question mark. Um, but like to be honest, we've seen Surons all over the place. So whatever, if your jurisdiction is just like, hey, e-bikes are cool, whatever, we don't care, then maybe this is a situation. Or maybe live on the beach, or you have dirt roads. I think these wheels would do well on the dirt road. Anyway, Eric Hicks, the head of Lunacycles, posted this on Facebook last night, and we've been kind of hearing some whispers about it. It's called the Talaria XXX, triple X. Um, what's interesting about it is you can tell from the picture that the rear wheel is going to be smaller than the front wheel. It kind of takes that Talaria we've talked about before, the Sting R. It kind of takes that look, but it's a little bit different. The battery kind of goes down the side of the bike. And when we were kind of doing some research on this and trying to figure out what's the deal here. We found that on the UK Facebook, um, there's a Talaria group that they've actually posted this bike to. So this is the XXX in a different color, and this is kind of the color I saw when I was at Luna. Um, you can see this thing has crazy amounts of suspension. So I don't even know, 5-7 inches, something like that, front, and also a big rear suspension as well. So this is like the dirt bike version of it. But even on the other, um, the teaser that Eric put out for Luna, you can tell that this thing has a crazy amount of suspension, both front and back. So where is this going to be ridden? Like, what is it going to be, road, or is it going to be off road? Or I don't think it's going to be homologated, especially at the price that they're putting out. So the UK site said 3,500 pounds for theirs. And that's already a very low price. I mean, I think that the Talaria um, Sting in Europe goes for like 5,000 euros, so, or 5,000 pounds. So other things we know about this bike, the one in Europe, we can't say if the one in the US is going to be the same, but the one in Europe has a 60 volt, 40 amp hour battery. So that's 2.4 kilowatt hours. That's already bigger than the Suron, I believe. I think the Suron's like 38 amp hours. Um, and it's a little bit less than the Talaria Sting's 2.7 kilowatt hours. We talked about the front and rear wheels. The the weight of the bike is only 128 pounds, or 58 kilograms. That's, I mean, we've ridden e-bikes, like pedal e-bikes that have weighed pretty close to that. So that's a really light e-bike, especially when you consider the size of the battery. Um, the English one says a top speed of 47 miles per hour. If we know Luna, we know it's probably going to be a little faster than that. They might not advertise it as such, but you know, the enduro tires alone will help. Um, let's see what else.
So the smaller battery, is that where that really good price comes from then?
I mean, it's a little smaller. It's so the Sting has a 2.7 kilowatt hour battery, and this has a 2.4. So it's just a 300 watt hour battery difference.
Yeah, it's not that much.
No, it's pretty good, and I imagine this is going to be a little bit more efficient because it's so light. Um, and you know, looking at these pictures, the the brakes seem burly. Like it doesn't seem like they skimped anywhere on too much. The only thing I would say is like I don't like as somebody who needs reading glasses, I don't love the kind of the display that's on the thumb. I kind of wish they had a bigger like speedometer thing in the center like the Suron. But I also think that this is kind of like one of those things where they're like, hey, let's cut a couple $100 off just by doing this one little thing. And I'm sure, knowing Luna as well, that there'll be an aftermarket thing that you can throw on the front if that's something you're after. Um, so yeah, what's kind of important here, if you're into this bike or into this kind of thing, you do want to show up tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific time, so 11 a.m. Eastern, and get ready for this thing to go on sale because it's going to go on sale and the price is going to be crazy and it's going to go out of stock almost immediately. And they're probably going to sell like 3 years worth of supply in like 10 minutes. So make sure you get at the front of that line. Um, and you know, I think I have to say that I'm probably going to have one of these my damn self. So uh, yeah, I don't know if
Yeah,
there's
I
a
could.
better the
Yeah, I can see you having too much fun on that thing. I know that has like way more. I think my skill level is not where it needs to be to really push that thing to the max, but it's the kind of bike that makes you want to become a better rider to really pull out everything it wants to give you.
Yeah, and so the British site says peak power of 3,500 watts. We know Luna usually like doubles their the stock stuff.
It's like a
Um,
snack for Luna.
yeah, it's like first gear, but in terms of uh, range, we didn't talked about that. With that 2.4 kilowatt hour battery, they think they can go 50 miles with those dirt bike tires, which are not terribly efficient at 3.5 kilowatts, which you can probably get going 45 miles per hour at 3.5 kilowatts, and just kind of hang there if you're pretty aerodynamic. So you could probably go 50 miles in an hour uh, with this thing, which is like when you're talking about motorcycles, that's pretty good for the a low price bike like this.
Yeah, it's commuter. Like, if assuming this was street legal, like you could use this for really getting around.
Yeah, that's the other interesting thing. On the UK Talaria site, the Talaria UK, official account said that there's a road legal version coming out this summer, which this summer is like a couple weeks away. I mean, it starts a couple weeks away. So I wonder if this thing here is going to have a street legal component to it, and that is something I do not know. Um, but it would be super nice if there was some sort of way to make this thing street legal, in the same way that like a Zero FX or
Well, that would be beautiful. I mean, we'll have to see what Luna does. I'm excited to see what Luna. Sorry, I think we talked over each other.
that's all right. The lag is a little bit much. Anyway, I think we're in good shape, and we may have a special guest on next week. Eric has been open to the idea of joining the podcast to talk about this and his other e-bikes. We're huge fans of Luna's, so hopefully we can get him on.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all of the stories today. So let's move on to some comments here. Um, Extra Hero. I wish it was a part of the website, so we're talking about Upway here, which updated readers on current deals on e-bikes, but I understand that would probably be a whole job in itself. Well, you're in luck, Extra Hero, because there is a part of the site. Let's see if I can go to it. Oh, wait, we're not. Let me see.
Not screen sharing anymore, I think.
I know, I got to add it again. Here we go. All right. So they have new arrivals, but they had sale. Look at that. Boom.
Nice.
Stromers everywhere.
Whoa.
And Vost. And there's a Serial Rush for 3,300. Momentum, Haros. They got 4 pages of sales.
Big discounts too.
Yeah. They've got some Go cycles straight from Europe.
Oh, more big discounts.
1,900.
This is
Giant.
dangerous.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, a lot of fun e-bikes there. So yes, they do have the sale page, and they have the new arrivals page, which are both in my browser. I say more Jackrabbit clones are fine as long as the cloners keep finding adorable animal names to call them. Not a legal
I like the
strategy,
pony.
but yeah. Didn't Himaway already have a copying scandal with Magicycle? I'm not familiar with that one.
So I thought that went the other way. There's the Magicycle has a cruiser that is very similar to the Himaway cruiser. I don't know if they're exact copies. They're pretty darn similar, but I thought Himaways came out first. Maybe I'm wrong there.
All right, let's see what else we got here. All right, Theo Frias, can you talk more about the Talaria XXX from Lunicycle? We did talk as much as we are allowed to, but stay tuned next weekend. Well, get on the site tomorrow, lunicycle.com at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, and make sure that if you have money in your bank account, that you have your credit card handy. And if you're into a bike like that, I think a lot of people are going to want to jump on this. So check it out. And then Micah, what are your thoughts about the Black Tea Motorbikes Indiegogo? I know you had some experience with this. Were you bummed that they aren't doing USA deliveries?
Yeah, absolutely. So Black Tea Motorbikes, they're a German electric motorcycle company. They did a successful Indiegogo a couple of years ago, maybe a little more than a couple of years ago. But they, after long delaying shipping US bikes, finally canceled US orders and are in the process of refunding them. And what they were saying is basically that shipping has become so problematic that huge amount of money on those. And so it's incredibly unfortunate because it means that people who bought the bikes, even though they will get their money back, basically gave this company a loan interest free for 2 years to use their money. And so it's obviously it's a real shame for the American buyers, but at the same time, I guess Black Tea Motorbikes had to choose between fulfilling these orders or surviving as a company. And if your other option is not surviving, I guess they had to choose survival. So, it's a real shame. I get why they did it, but also as one of the American customers who had his order canceled, I commiserate with my countrymen who are not going to be getting what I was hoping to be a very awesome Black Tea electric motorcycle.
And then can you change your bike to somewhere in Europe or Israel, or is that off the table?
Yeah, I guess if someone had a place that they could send it to in Europe, it's a possibility, but I don't think most people will be able to do that.
All right. I think that is all the comments. Just a few things. Theo Frias, check out the website for the specs. And pretty much it for the comments.
Awesome. Well, we're normally back every 2 weeks, everybody, but we may be back in a week with Eric to talk Talaria and other Luna shenanigans. So check back for that. And as always, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.